The Oklahoma City Thunder get a gutsy win over the Miami Heat to punctuate a 2-1 week, which is really a 2-0 week because one of the games doesn't count. Anyway, J Dub back on track. SGA looks like an MVP and more.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Styles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're diving into the Oklahoma City Thunder getting a gutsy win over the Miami Heat, taking care of this back-to-back 3-game and 4-night stretch with authority. And this was one of the more impressive wins of the Thunder season, not because of opponent, but because of the internal struggle of it all. And Jalen Williams has a bounce-back game. Isaiah Hartenstein continues to feast. Alex Caruso, sneaky back. And we'll talk about all that and so much more on today's show, brought to you by Robinhood. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of the high net worth to any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month with the new gold standard, Robinhood Gold. Sign up today, robinhood.com/gold. When you look at this game, obviously, the now 13-12 Miami Heat are not as daunting as, frankly, what you're going to face at the end of December, right? Like, this is still not a massive opponent. However, all that went into it makes this a really big win for Oklahoma City. This is a team who has been on the road for 9 days, went from OKC to Vegas, played a couple games there, jets over to Orlando, plays the Magic, in less than 24 hours, turns around and plays the Heat, who had a full complement to start the game. Jimmy Butler leaves pretty quickly with what the Heat are describing as an illness, even though he did limp off the floor and people thought it was his ankle after the 7:19 mark. The Heat announced it was a illness for Jimmy Butler, but you still had Tyler Hero, you still had Bam Adebayo, you still had a Heat defense in their classic zone, which has given this Thunder core fits over the years. So you only play them twice a year, and so it's hard to get used to that zone. And zone typically is what gives OKC trouble, but especially Miami's zone defense, which is so good and disciplined. And it did create 14 turnovers. They had 8 in the first half and had 14 to end the game. I thought that the Thunder at times were a little out of sorts with the ball because of the zone, but they were able to make the adjustments on the fly. The reason I think that this is such a big win for OKC is that you have a team who is supposed to be running on fumes. I mean, Miami has not played in 4 days. And OKC, we just went through their travel schedule, and yet this was a back-and-forth game where the Thunder won 104-97, and every single time that Miami went on a run, the Thunder answered. And not only answered, but bested Miami, who got out to an early 5-point lead. There were 5 lead changes, 4 ties. And the Thunder would go on a 10-0 run. Miami will go on an 8-0 run. Then it's a Thunder 12-0 run. Then it's a Miami 10-0 run. And then you just kept going back and forth, back and forth. And the Thunder did grow a 12-point lead to start the fourth quarter, and things were rolling. But the Thunder grew that lead, and Miami didn't just roll over and take it. They trimmed it down to a 2-possession game where it really sat from the middle of the fourth quarter all the way to the end of the fourth quarter, at least sat at a 2-possession lead, but the Thunder still got this win. And to only relinquish the lead, 5 times, 5 lead changes, so you give it away 4 times and you got the win, I thought was impressive. And when you look at this game, Miami started out really hot. They were getting Bam going early. OKC gets the lead back in the middle of that first quarter, and then they hold the lead all the way until the middle of the third quarter, whenever SGA takes a seat and Miami goes on a run. The Thunder then went wire to wire from that point to get the win down to the buzzer. I just think all that this Thunder team has gone through this week, playing the additional game, where now they're going to play 83 games this year instead of 82, it does deserve a pat on the back. And I'll tell you why. you look around the NBA sphere, and we'll talk about this next week. We have a lot of shows planned next week with some off days and Christmas and everything else. We're going to have five shows a week, including on Christmas Eve and Christmas next week. And some of that topic will be general NBA stuff. But you look around at the NBA right now, and all the talk is about ratings and how low the ratings are. And one of the catalysts for that is like, oh, these teams don't care. These players don't care. We can dispel that notion next week. But one faction of that statement that is true is the scheduled losses. A lot of times teams will come out in this situation, 3 games in 4 nights, extended road trip, and they see Bam get going early. They see Miami have it going early, and then they just kind of pack it in and say, you know what, it's not our night. This Thunder team never does that, and tonight was no exception, even though tonight they had every reason to pack it in. I mean, this would have been totally explainable. And I'll tell you, even Monday, whenever we were talking with Michael Martin and previewing this week, on Monday's show, before we knew what was going to be happening on Tuesday in that disastrous game against Milwaukee, before we knew anything, whenever at the time we thought that the Thunder would still win the NBA Cup, even we said that a 1-2 week would be perfect for this team. They got a 2-1 week. And that's part of why we do that Monday segment of like, okay, let's look ahead to the week. What would you consider a passing grade for the week? And the testament of great teams are teams that continue to exceed expectations, which the Thunder did with this 2-1 record. And really, all that counts in the regular season standings is a 2-0 record because that Tuesday game does not count. So now the Thunder sit at 22-5, and they're on a 7-game winning streak, and they're going to face the Wizards after a couple days off, where you imagine it'll head to an 8-game winning streak. Like, this Thunder team sits pretty. They had every reason to fold tonight, and they did not, and they got the performances they were looking for. Like they've been beat up with 2 physical games. I know that Orlando doesn't have Paolo and Franz, but they still play a pretty physical brand of defense. And in this game, you faced Bam Adebayo at the rim, which is tough. Haywood Highsmith is a very tough defender that they tried to deploy on Shai early and then mix in that zone. And the Thunder just had a response. And I similar to what we were talking about with Shai yesterday, I know that this has become normal or expected for the Thunder, but their ability to get up for every single game is very rare in today's NBA. And it should not go understated, especially whenever they take punches. It's not just like, hey, the Heat did not have it at all. It was rest versus rust, and the Heat just could not get it going. The Heat played a pretty good game, especially whenever you factor in that they didn't have Jimmy Butler for the majority of this game. They played a fantastic outing. It just ran up against a buzzsaw in Oklahoma City. And the fact that the Thunder can still be a buzzsaw with all of the scheduling disadvantages, with the health disadvantages of like the best version of this team includes Chet Holmgren, their second best player, and he's not healthy and he's not playing right now, not to mention some of the depth pieces who were out tonight. And so you just have to appreciate this gritty win from Oklahoma City. And they really stayed true to their formula for the most part. I mean, they win 104-97. They had 14 turnovers, which we discussed, but they forced 18 turnovers, which is a season high for Miami in Miami. They do not turn the ball over too much, especially in their own building, and they turned it over 18 times. The Thunder only lost the rebounding battle by 2, and a lot of those rebounds happened when the Thunder were playing small, and the Thunder were just creating second chance points for themselves, in which the undersized Thunder, again, only lost second chance points by 1. And so that's part of this new identity for the team. The fact that they can get within striking distance and neutralize what should be your 2 advantages. When you can only play 1 big on the floor, truly, 1 big on the floor. If you can't wipe away the Thunder on the glass and you can't take advantage of second chance points and distance yourself there, you're just not going to be able to distance yourself because you're going to turn the ball over, and the Thunder are going to scrap, and they're going to get out to that fast break point lead where they were able to go 13 for 10 on fast break points and points in the paint, where Miami only had 6 more points in the paint than Oklahoma City. And it comes down to the free throw line and the shooting percentages. The Thunder shot 70% at the free throw line. Miami had more free throws, shot 65% from the charity stripe. The Thunder shot 45% from the floor and 41% from 3. So you have a week bookended by one of the worst 3-point shooting performances I've ever seen, a 5 for 32 outing with a 41% outing and a big road win over Miami. Coming up, we'll talk about J-Dub. We'll talk about Shai, Isaiah Hartenstein, Caruso, AJ Mitchell. There's so much to discuss from this game. We'll do it all coming up. But first, I want to tell you right now about our friends over at Robinhood Gold. Check out Robinhood Gold today, because with Robinhood Gold, you do not need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows you to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn a very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides you the privilege of the high net worth at any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up today at robinhood.com/gold. Terms and conditions apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. The Thunder got a big win over the Miami Heat. We'll talk about what needs to happen next week on Monday's show, which will be a holiday edition on Christmas Eve. We'll play some fun holiday games with Christmas around the corner. The naughty and nice list, the wish list for the Thunder. Let them know what yours are down below in the comments. But this is a segment where the Thunder have to take advantage of a weakened schedule. Orlando with no Paolo and Franz. Miami, who's been a middling team. Next week, you play the Wizards, you play the Hornets, you play teams like that where you want to rack up wins, because to close out December and to start January, it is murder's row. I mean, you're playing Memphis, you're playing Boston, you're playing, Minnesota, who's tough, and they're, of course, floundering right now, but we know what they're capable of on any given night. It's going to be tough, and the Thunder are going to have some fun games in the Paycom Center on this homestand after not being home for a month in Oklahoma City, it feels like. We'll talk about all that on Monday's show. But for this game, Jalen Williams, he was spectacular. 34 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 block. He had 4 turnovers tonight, and so he had 4 turnovers. Shai had 3. That's part of like the lead ball handler facing this zone. It gets a little tricky, but nonetheless, J-Dub shot 12 for 25, which is 48%. He shot 4 for 7 from 3, 57%, and he got to the line 7 times after not getting there at all last night. He got to the line 7 times, went 5 for 7 to total up 33 points. And he was pivotal in this win. He was a +1 in the box score because he was on the floor during that big Heat third quarter run. And in the fourth quarter, he just took over. I mean, he had the first 8 points of the quarter. He had a double-digit scoring quarter. I think he had 11 in the fourth quarter. He was just spectacular in this game. He was more so the Jalen Williams that you're used to seeing on a pretty bad week. I mean, he was laboring offensively at best on Tuesday and on Thursday. Tonight, he was spectacular. And the reason I think that this is worth celebrating is it was not the Wizards. Like, it was a team who has that formula we talked about on yesterday's show. What's the MO? What's the book on stopping J-Dub? It is playing a physical style and funneling him into a rim protector. Miami Heat could do that, but the adjustment was made. J-Dub was a more physical basketball player tonight. He literally had the possessions we were talking about that he needs to do on Thursday, where he's initiating contact, bumping into a defender first, peeling off of him for a fadeaway jumper on the low block, which he had in the fourth quarter to kind of put an exclamation point on his night, initiating that contact to disrupt defenses, finishing through contact where he goes through the lane and he gets swiped on by Jaquez, and he goes up and still controls his body to avoid Bam at the rim, get the bucket and the foul. Like, J-Dub was just jaw-dropping. He had that one shot where he's racing down the floor and he just throws up a follow-away mid-range jumper as he's falling into the baseline away from the basket. It was just special stuff. It reminded me of that LeBron shot that he made against Toronto. Whenever you see that kind of stuff from J-Dub, this is why I had a monitoring tag yesterday and not a concern tag. He's capable of doing this stuff. He's in his 3rd season, folks. Like, this is going to take time. This is going to be something where J-Dub's going to have to struggle. His struggles are not behind him because of this Friday outing in Miami. He'll struggle again. He might struggle again in the postseason for a whole series. It's his third season. And so, like, whenever everybody panics after Tuesday, and then he follows it up with a mediocre at best outing on Thursday, it starts to snowball. But I'll tell you the same thing I told you, and you can go look it up. All the shows are on this feed before the playoffs last year. There's a real chance that these guys are young, and J-Dub will struggle against Dallas, and it's not an indictment on what they're going to be, because you look up any other player. Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown always come to mind when talking about this Thunder team. Look at how often that they struggled. Look at how often that they didn't have enough and couldn't get it done. And should you break up the Jays? And then all of a sudden now they break through and they're a dynasty. This is going to be a similar run for the Thunder. They're gonna be a victim of their own success, because we're already, after a year and a half, sick of the narrative of like, oh, they're going to break through. And we want to rush to the next part, right? We want to rush to the part where they do get through. But, other stars don't get to this point until they're in year 5, 6, 7. And so you don't get as tired of them, and they're now capable of handling this kind of stuff. Whereas the Celtics and the Thunder and the Grizzlies, these teams that get there early, you feel like you've been watching them forever, but in reality, they're still in the infancy of their basketball careers. They're not even in their athletic primes yet, and hardly entering them as you get to this stage. And so it was good to see the adjustment get made by J-Dub, where you can go back and watch all of his shot attempts tonight on NBA.com, then flip over to the box score from Thursday and watch all of his shot attempts there, and then go do the same thing on Tuesday. And you'll notice a stark difference in how he is muscling up shots and how he's getting deeper into the paint and not settling as much for floaters. And the ones that he missed, he really did miss, like floaters in the lane when he probably could have gone stronger and just punished the rim. Like that kind of stuff to adjust on the fly is very hard. But the fact that he's capable of adjusting on the fly is why you shouldn't be concerned. You should just be watching his progress and falling in love with watching this team grow on the fly. Like you are watching what could be the makings of what Boston has right now, and you're getting to watch it from ground zero. And so just enjoy that process moving forward. And for J-Dub, I'm sure he'll have a wonderful night against Charlotte, and he'll have some success this week. And then the real test will come when you get into that teeth of the schedule here in January and then into December moving forward. So this was a really good game from him. I think he made the adjustments that we wanted to see him make on yesterday's show. It's now going to be a game of, how consistently can you do that? SGA, again, MVP level stuff from him. He had some jaw-dropping mid-range buckets. His 2 free throws were both off mid-range and ones, where he's rising up and hitting these impossible shots through contact. He slithers his way through the rim. I just think that what stood out tonight, as he had 25 points, 4 assists, 7 rebounds, 2 steals, was one of his calling cards of his ability to dictate the pace of a game and the pace of a possession. Because he can come flying down at you at 100 miles an hour, and you think, okay, this is a possession where he's going to want to just tear the rim off the backboard. He's trying to get to the paint, and then he just stops on a dime and rises up for a mid-range jumper. He can literally crawl his way to the three-point line, and then you're getting settled in, and in the blink of an eye, now he's kicked it right back up from 0 to 100 miles per hour toward the rim. That kind of, what used to be the easy phrase to always put on Shai was herky-jerkiness, but that kind of control over his acceleration and deceleration is what separates him from other scorers and what makes him truly impossible to guard. Like he is the hardest player to guard in the NBA because you can't even have a game plan for him. And Giannis is like that too, only with Giannis, you have a game plan. It just doesn't work. Like with Giannis, you know what he's going to do. Everybody in the gym knows what he's going to do. You just can't stop it. And so that's like unstoppable. This is unguardable stuff. And there's a tiny difference in the semantics there of if I told you had to come up with the game plan to shut down SGA, where's his pickup point? Which side do you force him to? Right? All these things. He can really adapt on the fly to anything. It's why you saw him on Tuesday go 1 for 8, or on Saturday against the Heat, go 1 for 8 and then just turn it on and blitz the Rockets. I just think that SGA, to have a performance like this in 37 minutes with all the travel and all the high usage that he goes through is impressive. He went 3 for 9 from three. I get it. The 3-point discourse around Shai, it's kind of like that meme where you have the two passengers on the bus and one person's looking out on a sunny, perfect day and the other one's looking out on a dreadful, dreary, rainy day. There's like one spectrum of fans who will say, it doesn't matter. Just shoot all the threes. Who cares? The Thunder are still winning. And none of it matters, right? Like just experiment with threes. And then there's another side who's like freaking out with every 3-point attempt. And say it with me, folks. I think that the truth is in the middle. Now, there are some threes where Shai has to rein in. He has the ultimate green light. Like there's never been a greener green light than for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for this Thunder team. But in my opinion, there's a proper way to try to evolve your game. And so the only threes that I would have a contest to with what he's doing this season are the threes where he dribbles down the floor and just throws up a three right away, early shot clock, hand in his face. Because frankly, you don't become that kind of shooter overnight. You can't lock yourself in a gym over 5 summers and become that kind of shooter. You can't shoot 20 of those threes in the course of a game and then, for the next 10 games and then magically become that type of shooter. In my opinion, you either have that shot making ability where it's a bomb it from three early in the shot clock, hand in your face. You're either that kind of guy early and often in your career, or it never really comes around. What you can see evolve is his ability to hit clean, efficient, spot up threes and threes where a defender's sagging off and he can step into it, pull up off the dribble and knock down a three. So where I'm at in the middle is, yes, give him the green light. You want him to explore the game. You want him to evolve his 3-point game because this team, in my opinion, cannot win in the postseason without him being somewhat of a threat from three. It gets too congested otherwise. But by the same token, this team is also not going to be dependent on him hitting a step in, hand in your face, 23 seconds on the shot clock triple. Like that's not going to be his game either, no matter how much that he works. And I would hesitate to doubt SGA because we've seen his progression be the rare linear progression. Like Sam Presti always talks about how progression is not linear. For Shai, it has been. Like for Shai, it's been a rocket ship to the top. And every single year you try to put a cap on him, and every single year he breaks through that cap. So I'll grant Shai that. This is a cap that I don't think he can break through. So there's no point to even like throw away possessions in that way. And that's not, an indictment on Shai. I still think that he should shoot threes even if they miss. Just not those threes. So I think that there's some nuance in not just blanketing it with, Shai shouldn't shoot threes or he should shoot threes. Each three should be graded differently. And there are some threes where Shai shouldn't shoot, but there are threes where Shai should be continued to be pushed out to shoot them, because even if they miss right now, the process of improving his 3-point shot will breed the result you want long-term, which is postseason success. So it is a very nuanced conversation. He goes 3 for 9 from three tonight. He hit a three and really just thank the heavens that it went in because he's been on a 3-point drought. I just think that the 3-point conversation isn't as cut and dry as some believe it is for SGA. So hopefully that summarizes it pretty well for you. Coming up, let's talk Caruso. Let's talk Hartenstein. Let's talk AJ Mitchell. Let's talk Dort. Everyone else on this team. But first, I want to say right now, but our good friends over at FanDuel, go check out FanDuel today, because right now, FanDuel's giving you the required assets to tackle NFL action at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. There is Saturday Night Football with the Chiefs taking on the Texans and the Steelers taking on the Ravens on Saturday. And you can go right now to FanDuel.com, America's #1 sports book, because new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more whenever you go there to FanDuel.com and join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Perhaps you don't want to bet on the NFL, no problem. They have the NBA as well, where the Lakers are 6.5-point favorites in Sacramento tomorrow, or 6.5-point underdogs in Sacramento tomorrow at FanDuel.com. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast and the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. What a win against the Miami Heat. Let's dive into Isaiah Hartenstein. 4 for 6 shooting, a 13 and 18 double-double. We had 13 defensive rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal. Isaiah Hartenstein continues to be someone who pays dividends for the Thunder. They gave him that gaudy contract, but it's been worth every single penny. And that contract is another aspect that should be blanketed in context. Like, sure, if you put Isaiah Hartenstein in a Moneyball spreadsheet and like you're Billy Beaning this thing, trying to aggregate and trying to figure out what's each player's down to the penny worth, and we're not going to go a cent over it. Sure, Hartenstein's net value is probably less than his contract. However, for this team, you can pay him whatever you want. He's that valuable. And for last summer, right? Like last summer, the Thunder had the money to spend, and it was really a use the money or lose it type of situation for OKC. And it doesn't hinder them from signing Jalen and Chet and Shai and then retaining their core. It's just the perfect contract and the perfect move by Sam Presti to get one of the few guys who's a center, yes, and does fix the size needs, but in no way sacrifices the Thunder's identity and sacrifices how the Thunder play. And in this game, Hartenstein, I thought, did a great job of playing with 4 fouls. I mean, he got 4 fouls midway through the third quarter of a tight game. He finishes the game with 4 fouls. He did a really good job of still battling down low, still getting rebounds, and taking advantage of the Heat and taking advantage of pick and roll opportunities, hit some floaters, gobbled up rebounds to help you stay even on the glass. He's the only player on the Thunder team who had more than 7 rebounds. It was SGA that had 7, and Jalen Williams with 6. Like he was the heart and soul of the rebounding efforts for OKC. He even tapped out some for his teammates to go get and wrestle up, and it allowed you to stay within 2 on the glass of the Miami Heat. Hartenstein's been great. Haven't even gotten to see him at full strength yet with Chet. That will be a lot of fun for OKC. But I just think that when you look at this Thunder team and give these guys a big to play off of, great things happen. And it's not just like a specific big either. Like Chet, like working off of Chet is one thing because of his scoring gravity and shooting gravity. Now you're working off of an entirely different form of big and a traditional center, and it's still paying dividends. You give this team a center, they're going to be really good. You give them 2, they're going to be elite. And that's what this team's going to be when Chet returns to the fold, and some of their metrics bear out to already be elite. Isaiah Hartenstein's almost to his career double-double mark. He needs 1 more double-double, and he'll reach that. He can get that Monday against the Wizards for him. And so he's just had a great start to his career in Oklahoma City. And I think that with Hartenstein, one of the biggest things that he provides you is on the defensive end. Like this team was a really good defense even without a center. But when they have that protection on the back end, it allows the perimeter players to just go scorched earth out there and harass you and hound you on the outside. Lou Dort, 14 points, 4 for 5 shooting from 3, 2 steals, and a rebound. I thought he played in control. I thought that whenever he was forced to play off the catch, he did a good job of making decisions, and he was just on fire tonight. He's still dealing, of course, with that mallet finger, and to shoot 4 for 5 with an injury is pretty good from him. Wiggins plays 13 minutes. He goes 1 for 3. Overall, I think that you continue to see the trade-offs, let's put it that way, with Wiggins and like what he gives you versus what other guys gives you. Wiggins is the worst point of attack defender on this roster. That's healthy. I mean, I think that, he's better than Dylan Jones and better than Jay Will as a point of attack defender. But for all intents and purposes, he's the worst POA defender on the team. As we said yesterday, he makes up for that with his ability to be opportunistic in the passing lanes and capitalize on loose balls and try to contribute that way. But it's really tough for a team that's predicated on defense. And like, no matter what you do, they're still going to have some holes offensively with their secondary unit. It's really tough to kind of balance. When do you play Wiggins? When do you play other guys? And they leaned into the defense Tuesday. Wiggins had a big night yesterday. And then tonight he goes 1 for 3 and was pretty bad defensively as an individual defender. But I still think he can be a nice glue guy and a nice rotational piece for the Thunder. I think that Caruso is really finding his stride. In the last 10 games, he's been excellent. Yesterday, he was excellent. Today, he went 0 for 2. but from three, but he went 2 for 5 overall. And he makes these connective plays that really personify what the Thunder are all about. And none bigger than when the game's in the balance and Shai's dancing on the outside and they send pressure in the zone, and then he fires it inside the Caruso on the dunker spot. And in one fluid motion, Caruso catches and dishes to J-Dub for a wide open corner three, moving the defense and getting J-Dub a three and really putting the icing on the cake of this win. Like those type of connective plays are why you need Caruso in there offensively, and you need him to dig in and be a quality player on that end, which he has been over the last 10 games, even counting this one where he didn't shoot the ball particularly well. Also, it's not just connectiveness, it's playing in the pick and roll. It's playing off the catch, where he had some potential assists in this game that didn't count for anything, but they're still good passes. He finishes with 5 assists that do count in the box score for him, with 3 rebounds, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. A harassing effort from him defensively. Again, plus minus a bit off because he played in that third quarter stretch where the Heat went on a run. But I still thought that Caruso is continuing to find his groove on this team with this roster and kind of with this style of play. But thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. We'll be back Monday with a Christmas Eve edition of Locked on Thunder. We're going to go through the Naughty and Nice list, who has been performing above and below expectations, the Thunder wish list, which could be a myriad of things. Who do you want them to trade for? Do you want Caruso to shoot the ball better from 3? What's your wish list for this team? And then we're going to end the show with the best gifts the Thunder have given you this season. And then on Tuesday, of course, we're going to recap the Wizards game on Christmas Day. We'll do a mailbag pod. So whatever questions that you want to hear about, you send them in on YouTube, send them in on Twitter at Ryland_Styles, and we'll answer all those questions for you. And we'll continue to roll throughout the week. So thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. And until next time, be good and be good to one another.